Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 20th of December 1960. Right perception, knowing and viewing. The 5 objects were like the 5 spears, and the 5 khandhas were the things poked by them. Salato means it has the nature of always trembling, when hit by darts. When it was hit by darts, it became rogato, having diseases, the diseases of dukkha, domanassa, etc. Therefore, the Buddha described him as salato, yogato, etc. Because of that, feelings, vedana, of gladness, sorrow, etc., arise. Therefore, having the desire for the khandha means being hit by a spear and dart and suffering with many kinds of feelings. People who pray for the khandha are foolish and stupid. As an example, when the body is poked with the spear of a mosquito, it trembles with dukkha. Vedana of itching arises. We can give other examples for other ayatanas. Does this khandha have any desirable affection to own it? Whatever khandha it may be, there's no happiness, i.e., human, devata, and Brahma God. This body is always having diseases, liable to tremble, and always has to worry about it. These points are clear in everyday life. With getting older, they become clearer. You all are looking at it with Taṇhā eyes, but with the Nibbāna eyes, it never is free from sores. Therefore, the Buddha tells Nakulapita that except for the fools, no wise men ever say it is free from diseases, so there are many human fools on earth. Does it have any pleasantness and pleasure here? People think the khandha is free from diseases and pray to get it, think of it as happiness and pleasure. With a wrong perception, they ask wrongly for it, by making merits and prayers. There are 3 wrong factors that come in: wrong perception, wrong knowing, and wrong viewing. All these arise because you don't know you're hit by spears. Now, you know the culprits who made you get the khandha, i.e., inversions of Dhamma. If you can abandon these 3 wrong factors, you will not get the khandha. With the 3 right factors coming in, the 3 wrong factors have to disappear. You must note it as having only mind and form, not as man nor woman, not as a person nor a being. They are perishable phenomena. You have to remove the wrong notions of man and woman. It has only mind and form. You must observe its arising and vanishing. Do you still take it as stable and permanent? Saying there is no man nor woman means abandoning the wrong perception. Acknowledging that only mind and form exist means abandoning the wrong knowing. You abandon the wrong viewing of stability with the right viewing of instability, i.e., anicca. I'm asking you to contemplate the impermanence of mind and form to abandon the 3 wrong factors. This is having noble eyes. Before it was the blind eyes of a worldling. With the abandoning of Diṭṭhi Taṇhā and Diṭṭhi Kamma, no apāya khandhas will arise: hell, animal, and ghost. If you can't abandon the 3 wrong factors, then all kinds of khandha will come to you. Being hit by many kinds of spear and dart will cause many kinds of diseases. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 22nd of December 1960. The quickest way to end Taṇhā. I'll teach about the Kulatanasangkaya Sutta. This is the shorter discourse on the destruction of craving, Sutta number 37, Majjhima Nikāya, MNO 37. This is the discourse on the destruction of craving. How should one practice to make the destruction of craving quickly? It's not enough if you only see the khandha. You can arrive at Nibbāna with the discerning of perishing and vanishing, kaya and vaya. If we analyze feeling, there are no more than 3 types. Firstly, you must discern their perishing and vanishing, by explaining this system of contemplation of feeling. When feelings are arising, you have to see their perishing and vanishing. You see their arising and vanishing with the 5 path factors, samadhi and panna. Do you see the feeling as anicca with magga? You don't find feelings at the time of contemplating. The destruction and vanishing of feeling is nirodha, cessation. So you find out about the cessations of feelings. Vedana nirodha tanha nirodho. With the cessation of feeling, craving ceases. Following the cessation of craving is following the 5 path factors. When tanha is not arising, do action, kama, birth, jati, aging, jara, and death, marana, still arise? No. Then, sir. Instead, in the place of tanha not arising, the path factors appear, arise. You have to note about tanha nirodho, the cessation of craving in 2 ways, the cessation where no tanha arises and the cessation where tanha arises but is stopped. The cessation that occurs after tanha arises is found in the contemplation of the mind, cittanupassana, see the Satipatthana Sutta. After the lobha, greedy, mind rises, by contemplating it ceases, not leading to action. In the contemplation of feeling, both the cause and result cease. Sec.3 and Sec.4 do not arise. Therefore, the Buddha teaches Sakka that the contemplation of feeling is the quickest way to end tanha. After listening to the Buddha's teaching, Sakka went back to heaven and indulged in sensual pleasures, and he forgot about the teaching. We can see the great fault of kamaguna. If the bad objects come in, the good ones disappear. Whatever you're contemplating, the important point is seeing its perishing and vanishing, i.e., the importance of anicca. With the destruction of feeling, tanha does not exist. Therefore, if you can contemplate the ending of feeling, tanha will be finished quickly. We can see this point illustrated by some Burmese enlightened monks who finished their practices within short periods. For example, Nyang Lorntoya Sayadaw, 1867 to 1933, became a stream enterer, and within 10 days, he became an arahant. Soon Lun Sayadaw, 1877 to 1952, from Sotapanna to arahant, 4 months, U Manasara, Soon Lun Sayadaw's disciple, became an arahant in 7 days. Thay Ingu Sayadaw, 1913 to 1973, went from Sotapanna to arahant within 2 years. Therefore, near death, if you can contemplate all the arising of feelings to their ending, you can become a stream enterer and to arahantship. Do you appreciate it? If you contemplate the 3 feelings in turn, the process is cut off in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. This is the cessation of samadaya and dukkha. With the 4 noble truths, the cessation of 2 truths leads to nirodha and magga. All the cessation of feelings is Nibbāna. Seeing Nibbāna is the path of knowledge. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 17th of January 1961. The Importance of Spiritual Friend. This Dharma talk is delivered to a lay disciple Yu Ba Yin on the practice of contemplation of the minds. It describes the importance of meeting a spiritual friend as mentioned before by the Buddha. It also supports the second blessing of consorting with wise men in the Mangala Sutta, which every human being should know and follow. This is the best form of noble education for humans by all the Buddhas. Firstly, Sayadaw mentions birth from a mother's womb and continues to explain about aging, sickness, and death, the whole mass of suffering. This happens due to not encountering a good teacher and being unable to find him by oneself. Therefore, you're turning around with these 4 dukkha sakkas, pilanatta, oppressive, sankātatha, conditioning, santapatha, burning with tanha fire, and viparinamatha, changing or afflicted. In a past life, you were also with these 4 factors of dukkha. If you can't free yourself in this life, then in the next life you also will turn around with these dukkhas. You have to find a different route before you arrive at aging and sickness. Here Sayadaw talks about the importance of a spiritual friend, Kalyana Mitta, and the 2 jhana teachers of the Bodhisattva. There are many disadvantages to dying early and not finding a Kalyana Mitta. It's important to retain the Dhamma. Sayadaw continues to talk about the practice. What are the nature and function of the 5 khandhas? Their nature is sabbe sankhara anicca, arising and vanishing all the time. Their duty is only this. The khandha's task is to be impermanent. Sayadaw gives him the example of an electric light continuously lighting. Mind and form, rupa, are arising and vanishing in this way. If you look at it in a normal way, it looks like a lump of mass. You can't see its true nature. With a defiled mind, continues on the practice of the mind. You can't see the continuous arising due to the velocity of form in section by section. But you can see the changing of the mind. You have to work with contemplation of the mind. You must look at your mind arising with your jnana, knowledge. Firstly, you should practice samadhi. Sayadaw continues to talk about how to develop samadhi with anapanasati as yesterday. I have translated it before with the title, Importance of Samadhi, the 16th of January 1961, in Part 10. If you have samadhi, use this samadhi to work on the khandha. For example, there's a seeing mind that arises, and then a hearing mind arises. When the hearing mind arises, the seeing mind no longer exists. If you have samadhi, you know the arising and vanishing of the mind. So whatever mind arises, you know it's arising and also vanishing. Knowing all of the minds from the 6 sense doors. Sayadaw gives the simile of a spider for insight practice. They are all vanishing, and the contemplative mind becomes magga, insight knowledge. You have to make an effort to let vanishing Dhamma and path factors of Dhamma fit in together. We're contemplating 13 types of mind. Citta here means 13 kinds of mind, and anupassana means contemplating. So it's cittanupassana. What's the benefit of this way of contemplation? It leads to anicca and magga. You attain magga. Magga cuts off all tanha, upadana, and kamma. Does it still connect to the round of existence? Therefore, I am asking you to do it. You have to note down 2 ways of contemplation. Sayadaw explains the 2 ways of contemplation to you by yin. These are the 2 qualities of the 6 Dhamma attributes, ehi passiko, sanditthiko. Ehi means come, and passa means contemplate me. Contemplate whatever is arising. They are the callers, dharmas. Sanditthika is the followers, yogis, i.e., contemplating. What's the benefit of magga continuously meeting with the vanishing phenomena? It becomes a kaliko, apparent here and now, non-temporal, another attribute of Dhamma. This is the result of the Diṭṭhi Dhamma, seeing Dhamma directly by oneself. So it cuts off defilements of the mind. If there is no contemplation, the mind connects to defilements by following one of the lobha, dosa, and moha kilesas. With contemplation, these enemies die. The extinction of defilements is Nibbāna. Therefore, someone who contemplates will be closer to Nibbāna. If you follow it, you will get the 5 path factors. Sayadaw explains them. They can't be separated in samadhi and panna during vipassana. It's kalika, time-consuming if you don't follow it. It continues the DA process. It's a kalika, timeless if you follow it. It cuts off the DA process. See my translation on the talk, Time-Consuming and Timeless, the 8th of December 1960, Part 4. The following mind is one mind, i.e., Maganga, and the vanishing mind is one mind, object. A being can't be alive with two minds at the same moment. It has to be alive with only one mind from moment to moment. Therefore, you find out that the mind object does not exist there. In this way, you're looking at your own death. You are following behind the dead mind with the living mind. Similarly, we can customarily follow the dead person with the alive person, in a funeral to the cremation. Do you want to see your own death? If you can focus on one Dhamma, you will arrive at Magga. No need to talk about all of them. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 28th of May 1961. Where is dukkha coming from? This talk was based on Sammasana Sutta, SN 12. 66, and Nadi Sutta, SN 22. 93. Birth, aging, and death are the greatest dukkha. Where are they coming from? You have to investigate them. They come from the 5 khandhas. The 5 khandhas are dukkha sakha. They have many kinds of dukkha. They are dukkha themselves and support dukkha. Again, where's the khandha coming from? It comes from making prayers due to Taṇhā. So Taṇhā is the creator. To worship the creator is to worship Taṇhā. Therefore, if Taṇhā exists, then khandha exists. Only karma cannot create the khandha. Taṇhā is the basic cause for becoming a khandha, or a being. Therefore, Taṇhā is more important than karma. Don't say that due to not having good karma, bad luck, dukkha comes to me. Instead, you have to say it is due to the existence of the khandha. It is like water existing in a pot, profound analogy. Through the contemplation of truth, you will arrive at Nibbāna. From the khandha, dukkha becomes multiplied. Aging, sickness, death, etc. The khandha is dukkha sakha and Taṇhā is samudaya sakha. There is no karma included. Due to Taṇhā, the khandha arises. Because of the khandha, you experience many kinds of dukkha. With modern material progress it has increased and become more complicated. With no cutting off of karmas, you only get dukkha. But people prefer good karmas. Whoever is expecting that, when I will have good karma means, it is the same as expecting when I will have to encounter sufferings. Only when Taṇhā ends, karmas will end. But you think, I have to rely on kam mother and kam father. If you rely on kam parents will get dukkha. Kam is karma in Burmese. Again, where is this Taṇhā coming from? It comes from affectionate things, beings and objects. In another way, it comes from the present khandha. Does Taṇhā come from the 5 khandhas? No, it doesn't. It comes only from someone who has a wrong view of this khandha. Taṇhā arises when you take it as lovely and affectionate. It arises when you take the khandha as stable, pleasant, etc. If you think of it as unstable and suffering, etc., Taṇhā will not arise. For example, this khandha is like liquor mixed with poison. If you thirst for it and go and drink, you will suffer. If you can contemplate its anicca by not drinking, Taṇhā will die. It's important not to drink it. You'll drink it if you have affection. In this way, it has only 2 truths, dukkha and samudaya. In the whole of samsara, it will be dukkha sakha, sec. Point 2, right pointing arrow samudaya sakha, sec. Point 3, right pointing arrow dukkha sakha, sec. Point 4. Here, the recorded tape of the sound or voice is not very clear. According to Sayadaw, the 12 links of the DA process come from the Sammasana Sutta. Whatever one does with Taṇhā becomes dukkha sakha. After talking about the Sammasana Sutta, Sayadaw continues to talk about the Nadi Sutta. Note: I have translated a Dhamma talk based on the Nadi Sutta, Khandha Samyutta, by Sayadaw, which can be found in Part 2 with the title, Bond with Diṭṭhi Rope and Carrying Away by Taṇhā Water. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 30th of June 1960. The Greatest Enemy. Strip off wrong views first and contemplate anicca later. Today I'll talk about Diṭṭhi and Taṇhā. After you have exterminated wrong views first, then exterminate craving later. Why is that? It is because you want to become a stream enterer. If you want to become a non-returner and arahant, you should exterminate craving. Before me, people used to talk about the extermination of craving, and not about the killing of wrong views. You have to note that the process of the practice is straying away from the main point. Only after killing the wrong views will you attain higher knowledge, i.e., from once returner to arahant. You have to climb up step by step, unable to skip it. If not, your time is wasted and you will not reach the goal. If you kill wrong views, the coarser forms of craving, including wrong view, will be eradicated by itself. Craving will drift you away at its will if wrong views are not killed. If you exterminate wrong views, craving will be unable to drift you to the 4 apāyas. You have to remember that the worldlings who take the Khandha to be me are the biggest enemy. If you exterminate craving first, it is like killing someone who is not an enemy first. Knowing how to exterminate it will free you from the enemy. Drifting beings to the 4 apāyas is not the nature of craving. It is the work of wrong views. Diṭṭhi is the most fearsome enemy. Sasata and akeda views will arise if you take the Khandha as me every time it arises. If you exterminate something which should not be exterminated first, it will increase the dangers, otherwise, it will free you from them. With the companion of Diṭṭhi, craving will send beings wherever it likes in the 31 realms of existence. From Sotapanna to Anagami, one can't fall into the apāyas, because they have no wrong views, they still have some forms of craving. You have to understand the Dhamma process of your Khandha if you want to exterminate Diṭṭhi. The disappearance of a person or a being is the disappearance of Diṭṭhi. You're killing Diṭṭhi if you know your Khandha Dhamma process. There are many types of mind arising, not a person nor a being. Sayadaw gives examples of them. There are many types of feelings arising, not a person nor a being. Diṭṭhi will fall away if you know the phenomena that arise from the Khandha. You make it fall away by mindfulness and wisdom. The fall of Diṭṭhi is number 1. Contemplation of arising and falling is number 2. If you know whatever is arising, there is no I-ness in them. This is the stripping away of Diṭṭhi. Knowing one's mind is knowing the Dhamma process. Diṭṭhi will stick with you if you see whatever is arising as, this is me, etc. If your knowledge is not mixed up with the I-ness, it is good enough. Don't fear greed and anger. You have to fear becoming the I-ness. If you say, don't challenge me, then your anger becomes you. If you say, I want to have it, then greed becomes the I-ness. Sotapanna still has greed and anger, but they will not fall into the apāyas. Why is that? It is because there is no I and me inside them. Sayadaw continues with the Anuradha Sutta, SN 22. 86, in the Khandha Samyutta. Why are there 3 different knowledges? This refers to anicca, dukkha, and anatta nanas. The real existence is only arising and vanishing phenomena. These 3 nanas are clear to each person differently in their contemplation. The object is not different, but Dhamma is only one. Whatever is arising in the Khandha, rising and falling is dukkha sakka, knowing it is magga sakka, Taṇhā not arising is samuddaya sakka, and the cessation of dukkha is nirodha sakka. It only has the four truths. Is there any I-ness and me included in the process? Only dukkha arising and dukkha ceasing exist in the process. No person nor a being is there. The monk Anuruddha had a wrong view and doubts, so he couldn't answer the questions posed to him by the followers of wrong views, outside faith. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 5th of July 1960. The poisonous tree. This body, Khandha, is like a useless tree. In this case, what are you doing with it? It has diseases and is like a tree bearing poisonous fruits. You have to cut it down with 3 swords. These are the swords of Samadhi, Vipassana, and Magga. Therefore, the Buddha taught about Samatha, Vipassana, and Magga. Samadhi is the bark, Vipassana is the sapwood, and Magga is the heartwood. Together, they can cut down the tree in stages. If you do not attain path knowledge, it'll grow back again. Sati, Viriya, and Samadhi are Samatha. Samma Diṭṭhi and Samma Sankappa are Vipassana. By combining them together, it becomes the 5 path factors. Contemplation is possible with Samatha and Vipassana together. For example, when the mind desires to eat something, with observation, is it there or not there? You'll find it is not there. If you find out its non-existence, it becomes the 5 path factors. Thus, it passes through the bark and cuts through the sapwood. Sati, Viriya, and Samadhi know the arising of phenomena. Samma Diṭṭhi and Samma Sankappa know the vanishing of phenomena. I am talking about it because it's very important. Every time you know the arising is Samatha and know the vanishing is Vipassana. Initially, in contemplation, you find them sparsely. However, with more contemplation, you will find more. With Samadhi and Panna becoming sharp, you only find the vanishing, which cuts through the sapwood, with only the heartwood left. Yogananda is the contemplation combining Samatha and Vipassana together. Diṭṭhi and Taṇhā are interconnected. Taṇhā is like the heartwood. Sayadaw says a lot about Taṇhā. The above talk of the poisonous tree with its analogy appears to me as follows. The poisonous tree is like the apple tree in the Garden of Eden. Adam represents ignorance, and Eve represents craving. After eating the poisonous apple, they suffered birth, aging, sickness, death, and other diseases as punishment, which was like being oppressed by the Khandha tree, the outcome of clinging to the action of me and mine. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. 27th, the 28th of May and the 2nd of June 1960. Diṭṭhi and Apāyas. Wrong views and woeful existences. There are 6 phenomena leading to woeful existences, apāyas. These are diṭṭhi, vicikicca, salabhata paramasa, clinging to wrong practices, lobha with diṭṭhi, dosa with diṭṭhi, and moha with diṭṭhi. There is no other thing more important than the extermination of diṭṭhi. You have to know about this point early. Diṭṭhi arises from not knowing about the 5 khandhas. You all have to look for a teacher who is able to teach you about them. With his knowledge, the Buddha observes humans and finds out that hundreds of thousands of human beings die and no one is reborn at good destinations, sugati. That is from the Samyutta Nikaya. What he found out is that with the cause of diṭṭhi, beings fall into apāya existences. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha teaches that people who are heedless to anicca, the 4 apāya bhumis, are their permanent homes. A stone normally stays on the ground, but if someone throws it up, it goes up for a short period, and after that, it falls down again. The life of living beings is in the same way. Why is that? Because the whole day, people are identifying themselves as, this is mine, this I am, and this is myself. They're always living with Diṭṭhi. From the 6 sense doors, only Diṭṭhi, Taṇhā, Upadana, and Kamma are arising. There are countless kammas leading to apāyas throughout the whole day. Originally, mostly, they come from apāyas, and after arriving here, they're collecting Diṭṭhi kammas that lead to apāyas again. Where's Diṭṭhi coming from? It comes from not knowing about the Khandha. If Diṭṭhi arises, then Taṇhā, Upadana, and Kamma also arise. For someone with Diṭṭhi intact, the cauldron is waiting for him, her. For this point, Sayadaw gives the example of Upasaka Nandiya, who made merits and had heavenly mansions appear in heaven with celestial nymphs waiting for him. The ultimate reality of phenomena is correct and unchanging. You have to catch on to anicca when feeling arises. Diṭṭhi falls away by knowing it as feeling. Diṭṭhi also falls away by discerning anicca, rise and fall. The first one is identity and the second one is sasata and akeda. Knowing rise and fall becomes knowledge, vijja. Therefore, ignorance also falls away. Knowing about feeling and its rise and fall by contemplation, the DA process is cut off in the beginning and the middle. This is contemplating with the 5 path factors but not including the sila factors, because it is not complete yet. It's still contemplation as a worldling. The Buddha mentioned to the monks that he used to teach the true Dhamma to them correctly for once. If he taught them about the development of insight 1972 times throughout his life, it means it is a very important matter. Obtaining this Khandha and obtaining it again in the future is the greatest fault. There are 5 jhāvana minds, i.e., active phase of the cognitive process, that arise near death. And then the QT mind arises, i.e., the last mind moment at the time of death. This is the last mind of this present life. The dying person has to abandon this life's Khandha. The new Khandha starts to arise. This is birth, jati. The dying person sees the mental images, nimittas, from the first mind to the 5th mind. He sees these before death and doesn't have time to correct the nimittas. Therefore, the practicing of vipassana is one's own matter. Therefore, the Buddha exhorts us to practice 1792 times in his 45 years of teaching. Some people are crying near death, with tears flowing down their faces, because they are seeing the dugati nimittas, bad destinations, such as hell, ghost, animal realms. How terrible is that? This is not an ordinary matter, but the most important matter. Therefore, don't give any excuses and reasons for your practice. If you say, I have no time, it means you don't have any sympathy for yourself. Some reflections. If we never study the Buddha Dhamma, we will never know the dangers of samsara, while carrying with us the latent defilements of the 3 unwholesome roots, greed, hatred, and delusion, along with its other companions. The untrained mind mostly inclines toward unwholesome dharmas. Most ordinary Buddhists do not know the dangers and its consequences of Diṭṭhi. For worldlings, there are only 2 kinds of kamma, unwholesome and wholesome. Throughout their whole day and whole life, all their actions, mental, speech, and body, are of these 2 kinds, mostly the negative ones. This happens to world leaders, politicians, economists, scientists, etc. If we do not study the Buddha's teachings, apply it in daily life, and practice the Noble Eightfold Path, the frequent homes of all worldlings will be the 4 apāyas. This is not an exaggeration. We can check ourselves with the standard law of the DA process. The Buddha also warns us. A student asks a teacher, "Do we have any chances of going between the unwholesome and the wholesome?" The answer is, no, you don't have one. It is like a person who has no experience walking on a tight rope. He is bound to fall to the left or right. The straight line of the rope is like the Buddha's middle way. The left and right are the negative, wrong practices, and positive, sensual pleasures, ways. Not creating any negative or positive kammas is possible only for an arahant. The Buddha also warns and exhorts that wrong view leads to the arising and increase of unwholesome qualities, and in the same way, right view leads to the arising and increase of wholesome qualities. Therefore, wrong views lead to dangers, destruction, and sufferings, while right views lead to the opposite results. Why do so many sufferings and problems arise in this 21st century? The answer is quite clear. Some leaders and governments struggle for power and wealth, with both sides killing and harming a lot of citizens. A superpower's arms industries and businesses are not only killing their own citizens, but also creating crimes, drugs, and violence in its neighboring countries. These countries then smuggle narcotics and drugs back to the superpower, whose government admits the great harm affecting their citizens. Among the deaths of people, 40% are related to these poisonous drugs. This is karmic retribution. Right views, right thoughts, and right actions are related to wisdom, right knowledge. Wrong views, wrong thoughts, and actions are related to ignorance, wrong knowledge. Therefore, generally, humans live their lives driven by greed, hatred, and delusion. Without the Buddha Dhamma, humans do not have the right knowledge to follow the right path. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 8th of October 1960. The Paths of Action and Knowledge. Tell the story of Rohitasa Devata. Only with knowledge can one arrive at the end of the world. One can arrive at Nibbāna with good knowledge, Nana, not by good kamma. Nibbāna is the path of knowledge. The 31 realms of existence are the path of kamma. There are 3 paths, kamma, jhana, and nana. The kamma path is the far cause of Nibbāna. The jhana path is the near cause. The nana path is what arrives at Nibbāna and sends you there. You have to walk on the 2 arms length of Khandha with the path factors of knowledge. You use one of the 4 satipatthana based on your preference. If your knowledge fits in with feeling, then go with feeling. You must follow with nana on the arising and vanishing of sankhara loka, conditioned mind and form. You should take it as a vipassana task. The Buddha teaches that there are 4 truths in the Khandha. Aside from lobha, mind and form are dukkha sakka. With no lobha, no dukkha exists. Therefore, I am asking you, does the Khandha disappear? The ending of rise and fall. By observing loka, mind and form, it will tell you, I am dukkha sakka. Khandha is the teller and nana is the onlooker. If there is no more telling, you will see the end of the Khandha. This is Nibbāna. Birth and death, etc. are loka, arising and vanishing, arising dukkha and vanishing dukkha. You have to note that in loka you will not see happiness. If you ask, how long do I have to practice? If your kilesa is thick, it will take a long time. With less kilesa, it will take less time. You can even attain it within 7 days, e.g., Sunlun Sayadaw's disciple U Manasara. You have to increase your confidence, samadhi, and energy. An ordinary savaka does not need paramis. He needs to listen to Sakka Dhamma and practice to see the truth, i.e., arising and vanishing of dukkha. Birth is dukkha, living is dukkha, and dying is dukkha. Except for dukkha arising and dukkha ceasing, there is nothing else that exists. There's nothing that exists except dukkha sakha. At the time when you can make the decision thoroughly and see it as real dukkha, dukkha will end. The khandha will disappear. Khandha dukkha disappears under the influence of Nana. Therefore, Nibbāna exists at the end of the khandha. If you follow the process, it'll come to an end. With good kammas, heavenly mansions arise, and with good jhanas, samatha nimittas arise, and with good Nana, Nibbāna will arise. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 5th of October 1960. With little pleasure and too much dukkha. Sensual pleasures have little pleasure, but bring too much suffering. The Buddha teaches about the killing of craving. Craving is never satisfied and always gives you dukkha. You're doing things that never bring satisfaction and you suffer wherever kamma sends you, i.e., refer to DA process. Only the 4 apāya khandhas will appear, which are actions done with an unwholesome mind. Is there anything that leads to sugati and nibbāna? This happens because there is never enough clinging and action. This is the power of craving, which is indeed a very bad dharma. You can't abandon it until it burns you to death. Sayadaw gives the simile of a blazing grass torch for craving. Craving is like grasping the blazing fire tightly. Even with the burning and not letting it go, is there anything more foolish than that? You're foolishly holding on while burning. Only a crazy man holds on to a burning thing. A corpse burned to death will go to apāya. Why is that? Because one is dying in a serious way. First, don't go and hold it. But if you have already held it, then throw it away. You all are already holding on with sons and daughters. But if you let them go, you can still be freed. Throw them away with knowledge. If you don't correct your first foolish fault of holding on to it and your second foolish fault of not throwing it away, you will encounter your third foolish fault of burning with kilesa fire and falling into apāyas. Observe everything with the knowledge of non-self. If you know that they are not good to hold on to, this is vipassana contemplation. Contemplate insight into the external phenomena and also into yourself. By not holding on to them with tanha, upadana, and kamma, samadaya ceases. With the cessation of samadaya, the later arising of all dukkhas also ceases. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 8th of September 1961. Deceiving by the mind. With an ordinary eye, you look at a person as ugly, pretty, fat, thin, etc. When using the nana eye, you have to close the ordinary eyes and look at the objects. You can't find the colors such as white, red, blue, etc. What you see is the sensations here and there. In nana experiences, personhood and being disappear. The sense door is accurate, here the eye door, but it is deceived by the mind. The eyes only detect the color. Following minds of lobha, dosa, upayasa, etc. Cause paticcasamuppada dharmas to arise, but these are deceiving minds. They send beings, humans, to apāyas. Through the mind, one can be happy and arrive at Nibbāna. The mind can bring both good results and bad results. Resultant minds, vipaka-citta, are true, i.e., seeing, hearing, smelling, etc., but vithi-citta, consciousness belonging to a cognitive process, is not true, i.e., the minds that follow behind the vipaka-cittas. It doesn't matter whether you are seeing the color or knowing the color, seeing is the eye consciousness, and knowing is mind consciousness. You all are happy with the deceiving dharmas, by making the phenomena appear as man, woman, etc., and so you fall into apāyas. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 11th of October 1961. Contemplation of Mind. 5 external guest minds. 1. Seeing consciousness. 2. Hearing consciousness. 3. Smelling consciousness. 4. Tasting consciousness. 5. Bodily consciousness. Bodily consciousness has two types, unpleasant and pleasant experiences. 6. Internal guest minds. 6. Greed. 7. Anger. 8. Delusion. 9. Non-greed. 10. Non-anger. 11. Thinking mind. 2. Host minds. 12. Breathing in mind. 13. Breathing out mind. For a worldling, there are only 37 minds that arise for contemplation. See the Abhidhamma. They'll arise in turn. Contemplate the preceding mind with the following Nana. What will happen? For example, the wanting to eat mind arises. Its lifespan only has 1 and 2. At 1 it arises, and at 2 it dies, vanishes. Therefore, it exists as arising and vanishing. You have to follow the arising with the 5 path factors, i.e., samadhi and panna. You have to follow the non-existing mind with knowledge. This is where the 5 path factors appear. Right view is right seeing. Right thought is exposing the object for observation. Mindfulness is being careful of whatever arises. Samadhi is staying with the object. Viriya is making effort on the object. The arising mind will tell you, I am Anicca. At the time when you are contemplating it, it'll tell you, I have died. You have to follow it with Nana in your heart. These phenomena will tell you Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, and Dukkha Sakka. The contemplative 5 path factors are seeing it. If there's no mind, you'll die. Therefore, the minds are always arising one after another. You only have to observe them with contemplative knowledge. The arising minds are Anickas, and the contemplative mind is Magga. Therefore, contemplative knowledge is Anicca Nana, Dukkha Nana, Anatta Nana, and Dukkha Sakka Nana respectively. 1 is contemplating objects and 2 is the contemplative mind. If you can practice and let 1 and 2 fit together, by practicing in the morning, you'll attain Dhamma in the evening. 1 has already arisen. If 2 is a little late for contemplation, it means between the 2 minds, other minds have already arisen. Then you become aware and the contemplation misses the first object. For example, after 3 minds arise, there are 3 minds between them. You miss 2 of them. And then according to the Buddha, progressing from the 5 path factors to complete 8 path factors will become slow. The 5 path factors are mundane knowledge, and the 8 path factors are supramundane knowledge. Kilesa coming in between the contemplation is the biggest enemy. If you do not contemplate with insight, only defilements arise. Even with the practice, defilements still come in between the practice. Defilements are the evil one, Mara. Sayadaw recites the 10 kilesas of Mara. It doesn't take long to complete the 8 path factors and become a stream enterer if no kilesas come in. The knowledge of arising and vanishing phenomena is gained with the 5 path factors. This is Vipassana Magga. The 13 kinds of mind will arise in turn. You have to contemplate without missing anything that arises. In the beginning, you contemplate the mind wanting to breathe in and out, not the sensations. Sayadaw explains the way of practice with the simile of a spider. If defilements do not come in between the practice, even half an hour of practice can help you realize Dhamma. You have to practice firmly. Contemplate the anicca of these 13 kinds of mind and anything else that arises. If there is nothing, return to the host minds, i.e., breathe in and out minds. Practicing Vipassana frees you from the 3 vatas, see the DA chart. Without practice, one is going to apāyas at any time. It's terrible. If you have sympathy for yourself, you must practice. If you are only feeding the body and looking after it, you have no pity on yourself. Dharma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 13th of October 1961. Happy with dukkha. Without knowing of good or bad, living beings are happy with wherever they are. Getting the Khandha is getting the fuel. This is the body burning with the fire of birth, aging, and death. It's a Khandha conditioned by others and a Khandha oppressed by others. It wasn't created by anyone but is the outcome of ignorance and volitional action. They themselves are not good for receiving the bad ones, but we take it as receiving a good one. In the whole of samsara, believing in others leads to a lot of sufferings, i.e., worldly thoughts and views, etc. Because of past ignorance, we have this Khandha, and again in this life, due to ignorance, we are happy with delusion. Ignorance connects with ignorance. If you are aging, you are happy with aging. If you are in pain, you are happy with pain. When hungry, you enjoy food and drink and then experience the suffering of urination and excretion, etc. People are thinking and looking for happiness. There are many to mention in today's world, some are quite stupid and foolish. Taking enjoyment in relieving pain by shifting the Khandha from one side to the other. It is always oppressed, like the enjoyment of a patient. There is no enjoyment in getting the Khandha. It always grows out with sores, and you are happy by curing it, by conditioning. You must know it by practice. There are two ways of knowing, from what others say and from oneself. You must practice to know yourself. I'll present the story. The monk Savali asks the Buddha about the qualities of Dhamma. Separating the 5 Khandhas with Satipatthana will lead to the 4 establishments of mindfulness. You should practice with one of them. Whichever one you're practicing exists only as arising and vanishing. You have to contemplate to discern anicca, whether it's the mind or the feeling, etc. And then you'll know the body you have is the worst thing, an anicca dukkha Khandha. The whole Khandha is vanishing together, even though there are 5 groups. You will not find the 5 Khandhas. Instead, you find the arising and vanishing of phenomena. For example, we're talking about the death of a Christian, Muslim, and Buddhist, but death is the same. By discerning anicca, you become weary and it must end. Dharma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. No date. Differences between Khandha and Nibbāna. The 5 Khandhas of body and mind do not always exist and are full of suffering. Nibbāna is the opposite. It always exists and is free from suffering. The body and mind are impermanent and undesirable due to their suffering. Nibbāna always exists, is free from suffering, and is everlasting, dukkha Nibbāna, sukha Nibbāna, amata Nibbāna. The body and mind carry with them aging, sickness, and death. If you observe them with jnana, you see they are constantly falling apart. Therefore, the Buddha and Arahants are disgusted with them. Whatever Khandha you desire will only bring suffering. Nibbāna doesn't have suffering and is unchanging. Therefore, it's important to attain it. Devatas and Brahma gods who desire becoming bhava are with ignorant eyes, unknowing the truth and speaking blindly about it. They are making prayers in ignorance, like later monks. This is kilesa craziness. Samsara means the continuous cycle of the Khandha. Samsara has no beginning but has an ending. Its processes are so long that the beginning cannot be found. The beginning of dukkha is not clear. How long has it been like this? If you know the truth, samsara will end. Every day you're searching for the Khandha with clothing, food, etc. Nibbāna has a beginning and no ending. It surely has a beginning. It's a state of Dhamma happiness with no ending. If you desire Chanda, Nibbāna, the beginning is in knowing the truth. After that, you'll arrive at Nibbāna, which has no ending. Knowing Dukkha Sakka is the beginning of Nibbāna. If you know the beginning, then just follow it. You have been in samsara for too long without knowing the beginning, i.e., Nibbāna. In the Khandhavagga of Khandha Samyutta, Ananda asks the Buddha, I want to know about Nibbāna. What kind of Dharma is it? The Buddha shows him the beginning of Dukkha Sakka. If you describe the 5 khandhas as truth, Sakka, they are Dukkha Sakka. If you find out the beginning of Dukkha Sakka, you will find out the ending of Dukkha Sakka. The impermanence and suffering of the body and mind are the permanent tasks, i.e., Anicca and Dukkha Sakka. You have seen how important Anicca is. With the contemplation of Anicca on feelings, one later becomes wearisome of Anicca. For the wearisome person, not wanting to see, to hear, and to associate with anything arises. Not wanting them means knowing them as Dukkha Sakka. With the realization of not wanting, suffering comes to an end. The impermanence and suffering of Dhamma vanish, i.e., Khandha with Anicca. A state of no suffering and always existing, which is Nibbāna, arises. Dharma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. No date. Making decision with the Khandha. If you view kamas following behind you like a shadow, it is Sasata Diṭṭhi. You can't say, don't view it this way, or view it that way, because both of these views are taught by the Buddha. All Buddhists rely on kamas. From the insight point of view, viewing kamas following like a shadow and having the nature of stability becomes Sasata Diṭṭhi. According to the Buddha, those with wrong views will not attain path knowledge. Viewing kama as my kama, by relying on kamas becomes Sakkaya and Sasata Diṭṭhis. Viewing it with the Suttanta method becomes a wrong view. Viewing with the Abhidhamma method, it doesn't follow like a shadow. In the time of the Buddha, these problems were already present. When Kamasakkata Nana is taken as stable and permanent, it forbids path and fruition knowledges. This was mentioned in the Mahapunama Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya, Minnesota 109. An arahant gave instructions to 60 monks, but no one attained Dharma, and he took them to the Buddha. The Khandha arises because of Taṇhā. With the cessation of Taṇhā, Upadana, and Kama cannot do anything. There are 2 kinds of Taṇhā, with prayers and without prayers, with one's effort and by natural processes. With the Khandha, clinging arises, and with clinging, you get the Khandha. Therefore, they are not the same as the other. If you contemplate one of the 5 khandhas as Anicca, Sakkaya Diṭṭhi will not arise. How to contemplate the Khandha so it is free from Taṇhā, Mana, and Diṭṭhi? If you can contemplate them as, this is not mine, this I am not, and this is not myself, you will be free from them. During contemplation, don't let it become mine. This refers to the monk who had a wrong view on Kama with Sasata Diṭṭhi in the Sutta. In Vipassana practice, don't make Kama the only reliable thing for you. In the making of merits, you can use it this way. Kamasakkata Nana cannot dispel Diṭṭhi. According to Sayadaw, the 60 monks had Sakkaya and Sasata Diṭṭhis, which is why they did not attain any realization during the rain retreat. Cutting off Kama is necessary to arrive at Nibbāna. Otherwise, it's impossible. It's clear that listening to Dharma requires a good teacher. Arriving at the Brahma worlds is not by Kama, but through Samadhi. In Dana practice, volition or Kama is the leader. In Sila, abstinence, Virati, is the leader. In Samatha, Samadhi is the leader. In the Nibbānic path, wisdom, Nana, is the leader. Taking everything as a result of karma, if not known accordingly in its own place, is incorrect. Not everything is in the province of karma. In the Noble Eightfold Path, karma is included but not as the leader. Sayadaw continues to talk about the dog ascetic discourse. The Buddha never spoke if there was no benefit. He knew that Senya, the dog ascetic, would become an arahant. Ending at other people's mouths, sayings or teachings, is a terrible thing. By terrorists you die once, but with wrong views, you die forever and fall into apāyas. If you do not see and know about the Khandha with your own knowledge, then you may end up with other faiths. You have to arrive at the Khandha. The Khandha will never tell you anything wrong. Do the work of knowledge to penetrate the Khandha. Dhamma talks by Mogok Sayadaw. No date. Not for chanting but for practice. Sayadaw gave 2 talks on the qualities of Dhamma with humor. The work of seeing Dhamma by oneself is the practice leading to path knowledge. If you contemplate to see the object of contemplation, the contemplative knowledge will send you to Nibbāna directly. Sanditthiko. It's visible here and now through insight. Whatever Dhamma arises, you have to ask yourself, is it still there or not? You have to contemplate your own death. If you see it, it becomes sanditthika. Seeing moment to moment dying and not finding the corpses is insight. Finding the corpse in a moment of death is samatha. You will not see your death even once if you are only looking for deaths. If you see it, you will not need to look for it, it's meaningful. If you are mindful, you will think about it, i.e., the way of insight. With mindful attention, think about the minds which arise for the worldling. This is called sati sampajana, mindfulness with full awareness. With practice, let maganga, the path factors, arise. The path factors will send you to Nibbāna. You all do not want the true happiness of Nibbāna, but instead desire the fake happiness found in wives and children. Therefore, the Buddha called you all crazy people, or lunatics. Pathujana umatako, worldlings are crazy fools. Which one do you prioritize, Dhamma or rice? Rice becomes excrement and Dhamma sends you to Nibbāna. In the whole of samsara, you all prefer the useless things and resist the right and useful things. It is easy to do demerits and difficult to do merits. If people don't know the truth, they will continue to do things that cause suffering. Not knowing the truth is more fearful than anything else. In the Sakka Samyutta, the Buddha took some monks to a very steep mountain top. One of the monks said to the Buddha that falling down from there was quite frightening. The Buddha responded that not knowing the truth is more dangerous. Discerning anicca means knowing the truth. Only with the contemplation of insight will you discern it. Only this way will you know the arising of dukkha and the vanishing of dukkha. With a lot of contemplation, you will come to discern the truth. Sayadaw continues to explain how Taṇhā keeps the result power of karma intact. As long as Taṇhā never dies, karma will never die. If the path factors come in, they cut off Taṇhā and karma. I am urging you to practice because I worry about the seriousness of bad results. Your own desire will never do it, because you don't know its ugliness. Taṇhā is the cause of dukkha and not karmas. Sayadaw continues to talk on insight practice with the 6 attributes of Dhamma. The duty of the Buddha is to talk about goodness. Your duty is to do goodness. The Buddha has done his duty, but you're still irresponsible. This refers to svakato, talking about goodness, and sanditthiko, to do goodness. If you respect the Buddha, you will go to Sugati. And if you do what he asks of you, you will arrive at Nibbāna. You recite the attributes of Dhamma by heart, but you never think about it as your own business, i.e., sanditaka, develop it in the heart. Savali the monk asked the Buddha about the sanditaka Dhamma for himself. Every time it becomes sanditaka, i.e., knowing the arising Dhamma, the 5 path factors arise. When it becomes mature, it fulfills the 8 path factors and you become a person with path knowledge. If it does not become sanditaka and does not become a kalika, i.e., apparent here and now, not cutting off Taṇhā, Upadana, and Kama, then ehi pasako, Dharma is calling to you, come and contemplate me. Ehi is the object of contemplation, pasa is contemplative knowledge. When Dharma is calling to you, and you go there with Diṭṭhi and Taṇhā, you fall into the trap. For example, a mosquito bites you, and you go there with your hand, bang. It's a direct path for you to go to Apāyas. The path to the wok, cauldron, is straight, but the task of going toward Nibbāna is crooked with twists and turns. If you don't follow with Nana the itching of mosquito bites, then lobha, dosa, and moha will follow you.